All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really intense and honestly pretty sobering passage from the book of Jeremiah. It's a story where God makes this incredible offer, and it's met with a flat-out, shocking refusal. So, to really get what's going on, we need to set the scene. Picture this. It's about 600 BC. The kingdom of Judah is, well, it's on its last legs. The superpower of the day, the Babylonian Empire, is looming on the horizon, and it feels like they're about to swallow up everything. And right in the middle of all this chaos, the prophet Jeremiah steps forward with a final, super urgent warning. And that right there, that's the central question we're going to dig into today. God offers a crystal clear path to survival, but the people of Jerusalem refuse to take it. The big question is, why? All right, let's jump right in. Okay, so we're starting in verse 11 of Jeremiah chapter 18. Now, if you know this chapter, you know it just came off that famous analogy of the potter and the clay. And now God takes that idea and applies it directly to the nation. He's laying out a very, very clear choice for them. And listen to the language here. It's so specific. God says, "Behold, I frame evil against you." Now that word frame, it's not random. It's the exact same Hebrew root word a potter would use for shaping clay. So you see, God isn't just reacting to them, he's actively shaping the consequences of their actions. Now, that word evil can really throw you off. It's super important we get what it means in this context. We're not talking about God being morally wicked or malicious, not at all. Here, evil really means calamity, disaster, or judgment. Think of it this way. God is shaping a consequence, but, and this is the key part, it's not a done deal yet. It's not irreversible. And the call to change? It was urgent, and it was personal. He says, "Return ye now, every one." This wasn't some high-level call for a new national policy. No, this was about individual people changing the whole direction of their lives. That's their ways, and also their everyday actions, their doings. All right, so that's the offer on the table. Let's move on to verse 12 and see how Judah responds. And honestly, their answer is one of the most chilling, most defiant things you'll read in the entire Bible. God offers them a way out, a chance to be reshaped for good. And what did they say? They say no, a flat-out refusal. And get this, they don't misunderstand the offer. They know exactly what's being said, and they reject it anyway. They're deliberately choosing their own path, their own devices, instead of God's plan. It's a conscious, willful decision to follow, as the text says, the imagination of his evil heart. This next part is so important for understanding their mindset. When they say there is no hope, it's easy to misread that as a cry of despair, right? Like, oh, it's too late for us, we're doomed. But that's not what they mean. It's actually a statement of pure defiance. What they're really saying is, we have no hope in your plan. We refuse to change, we've made our choice. It's this declaration of total and, as we'll see, fatal independence. So in the next couple of verses, 13 and 14, God basically points out how absolutely bizarre and unnatural their choice is. He's like, hey, just look around you. Seriously, nobody else acts like this. He tells them to go ask the other nations. Even the so-called heathen are loyal to their gods, and their gods are just statues of wood and stone. Yet Israel, who was meant to be this virgin, completely devoted to the one true, living God, they've done something totally unheard of. The real horror here isn't that they didn't know better. It's that they did. It's a betrayal. And the analogy he uses next is just so simple and powerful. He talks about the snow on the mountains of Lebanon, which was this famous, reliable source of fresh, life-giving water for the whole region. He asks a rhetorical question. Who in their right mind would walk away from a fresh, flowing spring just to drink from a cracked, empty cistern? It makes no sense, right? It's a choice that goes against all common sense. And yet, that is exactly what Judah has done. They've turned their backs on the source of life itself, the living God, for idols that are totally worthless and can't sustain anything. So what happens when you make a choice like that? When you abandon the reliable source and choose a broken path? Well, verses 15 and 16 lay out the consequences in some really stark detail. They've stumbled from the ancient paths. And we're not just talking about an old dirt road here. This phrase, the ancient paths, it's code for the stable, structured life God gave them through the covenant, the whole moral, social, and spiritual framework that had guided their nation for centuries. And you can see this tragic progression, this sort of downward spiral. They started on this well-built, established road, the ancient paths, but then they stumbled. They left that road for these broken trails. They chose a way that was not cast up, which basically means they're trying to walk on a road that hasn't even been built yet. It's unsafe, it's unstable. You see, they didn't just mess up along the way. They decided the road itself was wrong. And that choice leads to one place: total collapse. And the result of walking down this non-existent road? Utter desolation. The land will become so ruined that people who pass by will literally be hissing at it. Now, that sounds weird to us, but it was an ancient way of expressing total shock and horror. Their collapse would be so complete that it would become a cautionary tale for anyone who saw it. Okay, so that brings us to the final verse we're looking at, verse 17. And here, Jeremiah uses some really powerful natural imagery to describe exactly how this judgment is going to come. God says he will scatter them as with an east wind. Now, to anyone living in that part of the world, that phrase was specific and absolutely terrifying. The east wind wasn't a gentle breeze. It was a hot, scorching, destructive wind from the desert that would just decimate crops and make life miserable. And beyond that, it was a well-known symbol for invading armies coming from the east, from Mesopotamia, from Babylon. And just as Jeremiah prophesied, this is exactly what happened, with chilling historical accuracy. The scattering came in waves, the first one in 605 BC. Then it got worse in 597 BC, and it all culminated in 586 BC with the total destruction of Jerusalem and its temple. And that leads to the final, just devastating statement in this passage. The God who had always shown his face to his people, assigned to favor and protection, would now show them his back. That protective presence is now gone. It's withdrawn. And the consequences of their choice, they're now unavoidable. And that right there is really the key takeaway from this whole thing. The real tragedy here isn't just the punishment they receive. It's the fact that they were offered a way out over and over, and they defiantly refused it. The judgment that fell on Judah wasn't some random, sudden act. It was chosen. The clay fought back against the potter. And that leaves us with a pretty heavy question, doesn't it? A question that echoes way beyond ancient history and gets at something deep inside all of us. When you're offered a clear, proven path that leads to life, what is it about that unknown, unproven detour that can sometimes seem so much more appealing?